Due to ShowPro's aggressive copyright takedown policy, this re-upload will be audio only, with the fully edited version available to my patrons, link in the description below. Before we get to the X and Y films, let's take a brief detour to talk about one of the most hyped projects that has ever come out of the Pokemon anime, Pokemon Origins. This series of TV-length specials was created as a celebration of the very first Red and Green versions and would attempt to adapt the game's story much more faithfully. Did it manage to give Pokemon fans what they've been wanting for so long? Let's take a look. Of course, you all know the story already. Red is a young boy who just received his very first Pokemon from Professor Oak. Together with his new partner, he'll go on exciting adventures, catch new Pokemon, and battle tough opponents, all in his efforts to complete Professor Oak's Pokedex and become the very best Pokemon trainer around. Unfortunately, as many people already know, this is not a complete adaptation of the original games. Rather, it highlights some of the standout moments from the games so that fans could see these moments animated for the first time. The results? Most of them are alright. I like how they actually made Red just a normal trainer instead of an unstoppable badass. It reminded me of how I tried to figure out battle theory and type advantage on my own for the first time without knowing anything about it beforehand. It did end up making him a bit weak on personality though, and he's probably one of the least memorable renditions of this character. One of my favorite things about this special is the cool details it includes about mechanics that we've never gotten a clear answer to in the games. Like how the gym leaders ask you how many badges you have before starting the battle so that they know what level Pokemon is challenging enough to use against you, or how we actually see Pokeballs break when the capture fails so you can't just go pick it up and use it again. Little things like that definitely keep the series interesting. On the other hand, it misses out on a lot of the broader concepts and longer story arcs. Because so much is being condensed into such a small space, Red's accomplishments don't feel nearly as weighty as they would have in a full season of TV content, or more accurately, logging 20 to 30 hours into a single playthrough. Most of the stuff surrounding Team Rocket, Giovanni's episode in particular, suffers a great deal from this because we only understand how important Team Rocket is from the games, not from how they're portrayed in this special. Everyone aside from Giovanni almost feels like an afterthought, and they try to cram a ton of ideas into Giovanni's episode without taking the time to craft an emotional narrative over the course of the series. It just doesn't work because there's not enough time for it to work. However, I do think that the final episode is actually really good and might even work as a standalone story. While Red and Green's final battle is really only good for the animation, the Mewtwo story that comes afterwards actually has a lot of effort and good storytelling put into it, and it even manages to work in the Mega Evolution concept in order to promote X and Y without feeling like a blatant advertisement. As for animation, a lot of it really doesn't look as good as I remember it. The second episode in particular, while good at setting the mood, has a lot of really cheap animation in it that drags me out of the experience. I'm also not a huge fan of the character designs. They just feel kind of drab and generic, which is the exact opposite of what a grand adventure like Pokemon should feel like. The fights in the final episode are still really good though, so at least it ended pretty strong. The music was actually handled by Junichi Masuda this time since the tracks were pulled directly from the games, and he definitely does a good job in translating his work into a fuller rock/orchestral sound, though they still don't feel as memorable as their original iterations, which speaks to a much bigger issue about this special as a whole. As much as I wanted this to be the big epic of Red's journey that we've been clamoring for years, this simply isn't it. It has some cool highlights of that journey, but it just doesn't have the same magic as starting the journey on your own, or even watching a more well-realized character start his own journey. It's not a bad series by any stretch, but it's just missing that extra spice that makes Pokemon such a fantastic franchise for me. Anyway, that's it for this video. Tomorrow we'll take a look at one of my most hated Pokemon films, Diancie and the Cocoon of Destruction. And don't forget to check out my other content while you wait. Special thanks to Jan Rogalski, Rourke Tinjoin, JJJ User, Kushina Minami, and all my other patrons for their generous support. My name is Ember, and I'll see you next time.